Unfortunately, we all tend to think of risk as being a bad thing, but it's also a bit like stress. Everyone tends to see stress in the negative context of stress. However, there's two kinds of stress. One is called distress, which is negative stress, and the other is eustress, positive stress. It's actually what got you out of bed this morning. Well, you can take a similar approach to risk in that everyone typically sees risk in the negative context. In other words, why shouldn't I do something? Or how's this going to have a negative impact on my business? In other words, what could go wrong? Well, the other aspect, and if you think about it, is positive risk, or U-risk as we might like to call it. So U-risk is really what started every business, whether it be Coca-Cola, Ford, GE. Every company starts with a person with an idea. That idea progressively grows over time, and as the revenue starts to come up and they bring in typically more and more management, the company unfortunately starts to increase its dis-risk profile and decrease its U-risk profile. In other words, they focus more on the negative risk, not on the positive risk. And it was the positive risk, a bit like getting us out of bed in the morning in terms of stress, was the positive risk that allows your company to begin. And the challenge as companies grow is to keep the dis-risk and the U-risk, bad risk and good risk, both in consideration of each other. No company wants to take too much dis-risk, but you also want to make sure you're taking enough U-risk. And again, U-risk is what's driving innovation. Here's what's really interesting. Your dis-risk is where others will find opportunities to disrupt you. Now that's great if you're a startup. If you're a startup, you want to go and find the big company's dis-risk. That is where your opportunities lie. But if you're a big company, you need to identify your dis-risks and try and turn them into U-risks. In other words, turn the negative risks into positive risks.